Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of Sublimation Graphics and Tutorials. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss out on any new videos. I'm coming at you today with my personal review of the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro Sublimation printer. A lot of you have had questions since I received this printer just before Christmas from Johnson's Plastics Plus, and I'm finally here to give you some answers. I didn't actually set up the printer until after the new year because I was busy with the holidays and things like that. But now that I've had some time to play around with it, try out different prints, test a bunch of products, I have some things to say. So first and foremost, my first printer actually arrived damaged, and unfortunately the damage rendered the printer useless. I was pretty upset at first, but I realized that it gave me a good opportunity to see what the tech support and customer service was like with Johnson's Plastics Plus. Now, the price of this printer is $24.95, and you're going to find that price everywhere it is sold through authorized dealers because the manufacturer sets the price. That's pretty standard for all types of commercial and industrial type of printers. It's to help, decrease any kind of competition that people might have. So what you're paying for anytime you purchase a printer is ultimately the customer service and tech support experience. Like that's where you're getting your most money worth at the end of the day. I was pleasantly surprised that both tech support and customer service are USA based and actually knowledgeable about the equipment. I'm sure that some of you have dealt with exactly what I'm thinking of and what I thought would happen, which is staff members who are reading from some sort of training manual and don't actually know anything about the equipment and how unbelievably frustrating that experience is. Thankfully, that wasn't the case here. The tech support person I dealt with first was really great. We emailed pictures back and forth, and we went through all the different things to try and figure out if the printer was salvageable. But ultimately, it turned out that there was a sensor that wasn't registering because of a part that was broken, and therefore a replacement was in need. Customer service dealing with the whole replacement was relatively flawless. I mean, it was very quick. They were just outstanding overall. So between dealing with my local freight individuals, which I have them in my phone because I get enough stuff delivered all the time, and dealing with Johnson's Plastics Plus, what started off as not so great turned out to be pretty great. So I'm impressed right out of the gate with that whole experience, and for that reason, I highly recommend that you get this printer from Johnson's Plastics Plus if it is on your wish list or your plan to buy list. So once I got the new printer set up, or got the new printer in and was able to set it up, I tackled the first challenge. I was a little nervous that the setup process was going to be some big, daunting task. Coming from the Epson Workforce 7710, which was not a sublimation-ready printer, but a converted sublimation printer that took me 3 days to actually get up and running, I thought that this experience might actually be a little hard. It was not. There is a quick start pamphlet or fold out sheet that you get. It has maybe 10 steps, and it's really just basic stuff like plugging it in and making sure everything is closed and putting in your ink. And then after you do that, the printer does the rest. It takes roughly an hour for the printer to do all of the work to get the ink through the lines, but then you're ready to do your test print and you're ready to go once, of course, you install the drivers and stuff on your computer. That whole process, I couldn't believe how easy it was. I was a little bit shocked. So 10 out of 10. So 10 out of 10, such easy setup. And then of course came the print. So my second big concern was that I was prepped for some color issue problems. I've been doing sublimation long enough. I know that you have to deal with grays and photos, and then of course just your regular colors and making sure everything is right. I thought for sure I was going to have to kind of figure out what kind of settings and manipulate all of that. And even that I honestly was dreading. But I persevered forward, and turns out I didn't have to do any of that either. So if you're someone who just is so tired of all of the hassles of a converted sublimation printer and all of the money that you end up spending on those just to get decent colors that still probably aren't even that decent, this is the printer for you. So the Epson F570 Epson Surecolor F570 Pro printer is sublimation ready right out of the box. Everything I've printed has been absolutely fantastic color quality, right on point, looks great, and the setup process was a breeze. This printer comes standard with a 24-inch by 100-foot roll of paper, two 17-inch by 100-foot rolls of paper, two full packs of ink, so no starter cartridges here, and then of course just like your software and things like that. Oh, and an extra maintenance box, which is amazing. The forethought on Epson to include extra ink in the maintenance box right out of the gate, I think it really adds to the overall value of the printer. Now, why does this matter? A printer like this has a lot of consumable parts, such as the cutter for the paper, the print heads, the maintenance box, and a few other things. These are parts that you have to replace over the life of the printer, and that's just part of owning the printer. The maintenance box is likely to fill up a little bit quicker because of that initial setup process. When I did that whole setup that took about an hour for the printer to do its thing, it actually used about half of the ink, which I was a little surprised by that, but then realized it didn't really matter because there was enough ink left over in the first bottle to top it off completely. And then I still had a whole other set of ink left over. But it's also because of that you're going to need to replace your maintenance box sooner rather than later. So that's included as well. The value of those products is a couple $100s. So again, really great forethought and a great total package to get you started. Now you can choose to use any sheets of sublimation paper that you want. I have printer jack paper here and also paper from Jingle J Sublimation. And when I got the printer, I picked up some of the new tacky paper from Red Coat Design Studio, which is meant for textiles. So I haven't had a chance to try out everything, but so far I haven't had any issues with any of the paper that I have printed on. Feeds great, no problems whatsoever. I haven't had any issues with things like roller marks and overspray. Just everything about the printer is so seamless. It's kind of amazing. Now, Epson is not new to the sublimation game, and I think that some people don't know that. They have been creating sublimation printers in 44-inch, 64-inch, and above for decades. They are not new to this market whatsoever. I used to always be disappointed, though, that they only had those, and that a lot of us were using these converted printers instead of sawgrass printers because of the affordability. You guys, if you've been with me a long time, you know that I actually was using a sawgrass when I first started this group, and that didn't last very long because I just got so tired of how expensive the sawgrass was to operate. What's hilarious about the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro printer is that back in May of 2019, I was on the phone with Joe Dovey from iColor, and we were talking about some of the issues with sawgrass printers and some of the changes that they were making that were not consumer friendly. And I said, if Epson was smart, they will make a smaller format printer that's more accessible to this market of sublimation customers, people who are not massive brick and mortar stores looking to spend $15,000, $20,000, but are people who are just everyday printers who want to make money. And sure enough, about a year later, the first version of this came onto the market. So I was not surprised whatsoever because it's just smart business. And the Epson F570 Pro is the new and improved version, which again, does not disappoint. This printer has maximum versatility with all of the different sizes that you can print. It surpasses the Sawgrass 1000 or 800 models for that reason. And more importantly, the ink cost is dirt cheap. I mean, dirt cheap. So I know that using aftermarket ink is very common, even if you're using a Sawgrass, because you're looking for something that's a bit more affordable. And I get that because, again, I used a Sawgrass. I was just almost cried when it was going to cost me $400 to replace ink, and I wasn't really using it for business. I was using it for teaching. And I couldn't believe that it was going to be so expensive, and it came with those starter cartridges and all of that. You guys, Sawgrass ink is roughly $80 for 30 milliliter cartridge. The ink for this printer is $25 for one color with, it's got like keyed bottles and a tank that fills, for 140 milliliters. So 140 milliliters for $25 for one color. That price is unbeatable. It is unbeatable. Hands down, 10 out of 10. And also, if you're a big fan of the EcoTank line, this uses that same technology, which again, also fantastic. The EcoTanks have less issues with things like clogging and air in the lines. So huge benefit for this printer as well. But the biggest part is that the OEM ink is so cheap. So if that is a common concern of yours, it's not a problem with this printer. Okay, so in addition to the whole kit that you get with this printer and its versatility, you also get the Epson Edge Print RIP software, which is the software designed for the printer to just allow you to set up a file to print. So again, perfect if you don't really use any type of other design program and you just want to be able to print and go. You can do all of that in that software, and that software is going to allow you to have the most control over color output and any type of corrections you might need to make to give you the best results across the board. So all in all, I am super impressed by this printer, and I want to show it to you and just kind of give you a look at some of the other stuff that you can see it in real time. So let's go ahead and pop over there. Here is a look at the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro from Johnson's Plastics Plus. Some of you might be wondering about the size. I know that I was wondering about it when I did the whole build out of this new workbench in my office because I wanted to make sure that I actually had the space for it when I was putting all of this together. So it is 38 inches wide by 31 inches deep, and then it's 10 inches tall. So not super small, but also not massive. I think that it kind of seems compact at the end of the day. If you don't feel like you have space on a workbench area and you don't want to do the whole thing that I did where I built all of this, they do actually make a stand for it so that the printer can be freestanding. So definitely a nice little benefit there as well. You can see the where the ink goes right over in here, and that it features that EcoTank type of functionality that gives far less problems with air in the lines and any clogging and things like that. This is the paper tray, which is actually detachable fairly easily, and I haven't personally been keeping this on because I want to have the space in front of the printer to work, and normally the printer's pushed back a little bit. These are the backup ink that you get, and it has those keyed head bottles that fit into the part right there. And what's really nice is that you don't have to worry about overfilling and spilling everything anywhere because it has like an auto stop feature that I think is pretty cool all on its own. So you literally just stick it in with the keyed head and it's ready to go. So you get a full extra set of ink. Once you do the setup process and then top off all of your ink, you'll use that first bottle. So you get 2 full sets. One set you will completely use during the setup process to get ready to go, and then you still have your backup. As I mentioned, you do get several rolls of paper, 2 17-inch ones, and I have the 24-inch one already in the printer itself. So you can kind of see it back in there. It's easy enough to slide everything in and take everything out, which is also really nice. Just kind of close that. This actually closes up all the way. So if you do a lot of rolled printing, you can actually leave it just like that. I tend to do a lot of paper printing, and therefore I want my little paper tray up here. Your paper tray can accommodate up to 13 by 19 paper, no problem. And there's also the option to manually feed a 24-inch sheet that can be 24 inches up to 708 inches long. I'm guessing that's for banner printing, but you do have that as well. There's a little user screen here, a little hard to see on the camera because of the glare. There we go. So user screen is pretty basic. You can, access all of your same settings, check your printer status, and quickly change any of your paper or media, do any type of maintenance right in here. Overall, I found all of this very easy to use, very easy to set up. And depending on your different options here, you have that as well. So you can see I don't have any cut sheets loaded, but I've got my rolled paper and my auto sheet feeder all in there. Everything about this printer is very easy to use and very user-friendly, which I think is a big selling point as well. The ink is very cheap, the colors are very accurate, and that is really what we're looking for at the end of the day, right? Ease of use as well. This actually folds down, by the way, if you don't like things popped up. I don't really know what else to say, because for a sublimation printer, I mean, we all know what they do. And honestly, the biggest part of this was how easy it was to set up. So I do want to show you the RIP software as well and give you a nice little look at that Epson Edge print. So let's pop over to the computer and check that out. I just remembered that another question I wanted to answer that is frequently asked is whether or not the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro has a self-cleaning mode similar to that of the maintenance mode in the Sawgrass printers. I could not find any definitive answer to state that this does actually have that function. I didn't see it in the technical documents, the user guide, or anything I searched for online. So to my knowledge, it does not have this functionality, but I could be wrong. I may not just be aware of it. I do know that Epson includes a self-cleaning mode in a lot of their other commercial and industrial printers, such as their direct-to-garment printers. So I am a little surprised that it doesn't have it, but I also don't think that it's the issue that a lot of people think that it is. In the sublimation market, we have been very conditioned to think that if we don't do maintenance, the whole world is going to end for our printer, and that is simply not the case. I have done very limited maintenance on my Workforce 7710 printer in all the time that I have had it, and I have often let it sit for months without use and never had an issue. I've had one time in 4 years where my black ink was clogged up at the nozzle and didn't work once in 4 years. There are a lot of factors that go into how much maintenance your printer needs. How much printing that you do and things like that definitely matter. If you're doing a lot of printing, it should be your standard to just run a nozzle check first thing in the morning. If you were at a brick and mortar store, this is what they do every single day as part of their setup process, and there's no reason why those of you at home shouldn't do the same. I understand that some of you are concerned about letting your printer sit and then potentially having clogs, but with the EcoTank functionality, there is less likely to be clogs, and with the increased number of print heads, you're also less likely to have ink built up on your nozzle. A couple of other factors into ink clogging are the humidity or lack of humidity and the temperature where you are. If you live in an area that is warmer and more humid, but not, exceptionally humid, you are going to have less issues with clogging no matter what printer that you use, just because of the environment. And I do think that this is probably a reason why I haven't had too many issues, because I live in North Carolina and it's blazing hot and humid here 7 months, 8 months out of the year. So I do think things like that make a difference. Regular maintenance is just part of having any type of equipment, and you should want to be proactive about that because you care about your investment, and that's going to keep it moving forward. Another factor into having more ink clogs is incorrect print settings and outputting too much ink and not the right paper type. This is another thing that's completely alleviated with the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro printer, because all of your settings are preset. You literally just have to go File and Print and select whether it's textile or rigid for hard substrates, and that's it. So you're not fussing around trying to figure out paper type settings for different types of paper and all of that, which greatly contribute to the issues that people frequently have. Settings like premium presentation matte are the worst advice I see people who don't know what they're talking about give for printing in the sublimation industry. And if you are using those settings, you are very likely to have more clogging issues, more buildup on your nozzle heads, more overspray issues, more roller mark issues. So just something to keep in mind if that was a question that you had, is that there's a lot of variables that impact whether or not a self-cleaning mode is actually necessary. And I think that Epson does have the forethought enough to create a piece of equipment that doesn't necessarily need that as long as it's taken care of accordingly. So if that was one of your questions, I did want to make sure to answer that because I know that has been asked. Here's a look at the Epson Edge Print software. Now this RIP software is new and improved with the Epson F570 Pro printers. It is not available with the F170 either. The purpose of this software is not to be a graphic design software, but to give you total control over different aspects of printing with your printer. If you've used other types of higher end printers, such as the iColor white toner printers or the Epson direct to garment printers, then you're probably pretty familiar with how RIP softwares operate. They are fairly basic and give you just access to some key tools to optimize your printing and print flow. This is absolutely ideal if you are someone who really doesn't want to learn another graphic design program just to be able to print, or is struggling with design programs when it comes to print. The Epson Edge Print software with the new improvements guarantees some of the best color accuracy between what you see on your screen and what you ultimately get printed by your sublimation printer. Let's have a look at just the quick things that you can do with this and how to navigate this software. When you want to add some type of file, you simply come to Add and select whatever you would like to add from your File Explorer. You can also add a job by coming to File and selecting Add Job to List. With your job selected, you have a couple of options depending on where you want to click around. First and foremost, if you have multiple files that you have imported, you can select all of them and then choose Nest, which will allow the software to automatically group everything on your printing surface area to ensure that you are maximizing your space. This is definitely ideal if you have a lot of different pieces that you want to print at once and you want to take advantage of that 24-inch wide by 100 feet worth of printing off of your paper roll. When you click on Job Info, it's going to give you the basic information about this file, which is handy if you have downloaded a file from somewhere or have been sent a file by someone else and want to verify things like the DPI, the print quality, the overall size, and things of that nature. Underneath Basic Settings, you'll be able to choose your standard media settings and any advanced settings. This is going to include how you're printing. Are you printing to your roll paper, your auto sheets, or are you planning on doing your roll and having it cut that sheet? What size of the paper are you using? Are you using for textiles or a hard substrates? And do you want to adjust the DPI to improve the overall quality of your design? There's also some advanced settings here, as you can see. And me personally, I don't see a reason to adjust any of these, and I haven't found a reason thus far. The default settings really are perfect right out of the box with this printer, and that is honestly one of the things that I am most impressed by when it comes to the Epson Surecolor F570 Pro. Over here on our Layout tab, you can do things like create additional copies and resize, recenter, or realign your artwork on your page. This is very handy tools. Again, makes it quick and easy for you to be able to group multiple designs together and not have to worry about setting it up in a design software first. You can do all of that type of stuff right here in the Epson Edge Print software and save yourself a whole step. That alone, fantastic. Again, especially if you are not someone who wants to learn a new software or even utilizes another software. You can see all of your standard alignment tools and spacing tools as well. You can set the spacing varied in between them, and even things like orientation. Of course, mirror image is the default for most sublimation products, and you can check or deselect that here as well. Underneath color settings, you can choose what type of settings, depending on where you're printing. There's also that option to give priority to the embedded profile, which is something that you should always select when you're doing sublimation. Because sublimation prints it uses RGB files, we have our settings here, but there's also CMYK as well. Even though this software, we're using it with a sublimation printer, I believe that the software is also used for other types of printers that Epson puts out, which is one of the reasons why you see that CMYK option. Even though our sublimation printers do print in CMYK, the color information that we base our printing on is RGB because sublimation is a gas. Sublimation ink converts to a gas before becoming a solid in our materials, and gas follows the rules of light and therefore follows RGB color code. So if you didn't know that, you just learned something new today. We can see our different drop-down options for our color profiles. We know, of course, that Epson sRGB is the most current color profile for RGB/8, but there's also the older profile, which is great for Macs, as well as Apple and Color Match. Now, I personally haven't played around with any of those settings because I haven't had a reason to, and I do personally print from Affinity Designer pretty much always because all of my settings are ready to go right there. But again, the Epson Edge Print is going to give you all of the tools that you need for printing and give you the most control over your printer's output. Over here in color replacement, you can choose to make some basic color swaps within your graphic. So you'll start by selecting Edit and then choosing the eyedropper and selecting a color that you want to modify. So let's just say we select the blue. Next, you're going to come down here and you're going to adjust these colors. You have your options here because its output is our CMYK, so that's what you'll be adjusting. So let's say we just put this down to 0. It'll show you that your after change color is going to be this color. Now you can actually see this when we move on and come over to things like mark. Notice how it adjusted. It's all pink now. We can get a preview of what that's going to look like. The color settings will stay as you continue to move through other settings. It's basically just once you get out of that color replacement tab, you see the full color change. Now this mark tab is great because if you're printing a lot of different things on a page and you want to have some easy guidelines for trimming, you can go ahead and do that here in the mark setting. You can see there's a few different ones that you can use. For those of you who happen to print a lot of tumblers in particular that have white backgrounds, this is great for helping you sort of have a frame of reference for where to trim. So I love that little feature that's built in here. You can additionally do additional margins, and you have some options here for labeling your job. There's also a standard crop tool, nothing super spectacular here. You just click on it and then you can choose to crop. When you select enable, you can then choose to crop manually or set the sizes here. So if there's something that you need to get out of a graphic that you happen to have purchased or has been sent to you, you can easily do that here. Get rid of that dead space, anything like that. This particular design doesn't have any dead space or anything, so we're pretty good to go here. Another great feature is the option to tile, which when you enable this, you can create a split design that you will be able to then tile. You can designate the number of tiles that you would like, the size of those tiles, and how much you would overlap. So this is another really great option for people who are doing larger than press or larger than print size type of products. This gives you total control, quick and easy to be able to tile things on print. Of course, if you're using the Epson Surecolor F570, then you know it prints 24 inches wide, which I don't know too many sublimation substrates that are bigger than that outside of t-shirts. But it's definitely nice to have the option and the functionality within this, just in case maybe you don't have a rolled paper and you only have sheets on hand and you want to be able to get the best results. You can still do that in here as well. Fantastic feature for sure. Now, my favorite feature is this cool step and repeat. Sorry, you have to disable the tiling if you're doing the step and repeat. So the step and repeat, this gives you the ability to create a repeated pattern like with the design like you would on a banner, which I just think is the coolest feature that is part of this RIP software. So when you click to enable that, you have your layout size, you can choose your pattern type, you can modify the aspect ratio, overlap it, or increase the space. And when you click and hold on this, you get a preview for how it will be tiled and spaced out. So of course, if I was going to do this, I would want to increase the spacing in between because they're really close together, like that star and the foot of the one above. But if you're doing any type of banner printing or need something that just has like a tiled background, so even background drops, this is a cool little function that you have access to. So that's really it when it comes to the RIP software. It doesn't have anything super substantial. Again, it's not a design software. It is literally just meant to help you maximize your printing function and capabilities. I 100% recommend using this if you don't feel comfortable using outside softwares or if you just don't want to use outside softwares, because this gives you everything you need to print and go using your Epson Surecolor F570 printer. Again, you have the option between rolled paper, sheet paper, getting your paper cut off of the roll. And so versatility is really endless. So there you have it. The Epson Surecolor F570 Pro printer is in a class of its own. It is absolutely the best value for your buck on the market, and it's probably the only printer that you'll ever need for the rest of your time in business. What I love about it most of all is just the fluidity of how easy it is to use and effortlessly to set up. I've had nothing but a positive experience with it and a positive experience dealing with the customer support at Johnson's Plastics Plus. So if you're in the market for a new printer or on the fence about whether this one is worth the money, I hope this review helped. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.